Great, thank you. Vicky, I'm so excited to read your book. This was fascinating, and I love that you're telling your children too. Have you not read my book? Why would you make those decisions? That was wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to being with you all today just to talk about allyship. I'm going to put in the chat as well the link to the program in my email. So if you do need a drop and you're not able to see the whole slides, you can find all the information there. Lean In is a nonprofit working to create gender equity in the workplace. We carry out the largest study on women in the workplace year after year, where we understand what are the largest barriers women are facing. And then as an organization, we work years to create toolkits for companies to create more inclusive cultures. And so today I'm going to talk to you about one and the research behind why we've created it, how you can bring it to your company. And then if you're able to stay on, I'll give you a bit of an overview and some allyship actions that you can actually take today when we're looking at how do we show up as allies. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You should be able to see it without a problem. We did the tech checks, so it should be fine. But just to give you an idea of really why we developed this program in the beginning. And so what we had found is there is a big gap between intent and action. And so this is specific to our Women in the Workplace report, which is why you're seeing these specific statistics, but you can understand the concept as well. Part of the reason there is a gap is because we don't understand exactly what it means to act as an ally. And so while a majority of employees think of themselves as allies, relatively few are performing basic allyship actions, such as advocating for racial equity, mentoring women of color. And again, these are specific to the Women in the Workplace report. And then over the past year, with renewed commitments to allyship and even more white employees see themselves as allies, but our data from this past year is showing that those basic allyship actions are still not being taken. And so this really helped us understand that there is this big gap between intent and action. And we also wanted to understand, well, what if we were able to create something? What might that do to a culture? And so what we found is that allies don't just influence one person at a time. They inspire others to act as change agents too. And what that does is really have other allies step up as allies, create this domino effect, and together creates cultures of acceptance and support. And so starting with one employee can actually lead to tangibly changing a culture because of what signals the others when somebody else can speak up and actually show some actions in that allyship space. And we know that the right DE&I policies are crucial for building equitable companies, but policies alone can't shift culture. And we know that. And so we need employees at all levels to buy in, step up, and then act as change agents so that we can really see that inclusive culture come together. And so what the workshop covers, and again, as it was shared before, this is free. And so all of our programs are free when it comes to this, as we know that can be a big barrier for companies. What the workshop covers, and then I'll go into really how to bring this into a company, and then we'll actually dive into a few of these, is starting with that foundational understanding when we think about allyship and privilege. And so in the US specifically, privilege has become a very triggering and polarized word. And we want to understand really what is it? Let's get to the basics of it. It's not bad that we have it, but what we need to focus on is what we can do with that. And so we start the workshop with that foundational understanding. And then we talk about the workplace inequities. And so where does privilege tie into these inequities? And then we do that through data and stories, trying to stay objective and making sure people don't feel alienated, but they feel that they can be seen and that they leave the workshop knowing and empowered to act as an ally. We then really end with these last three of positional power. And so whether you're leading a meeting, you have some sort of way to have positional power. You don't just have to be a leader and executive in the company. How can you uncover that and then understand how you can use that? And then talking about the allyship actions. And so we then end with that active allyship framework. And the idea is we want to give you specific, tangible actions that you can practice the next day so that you know that you can start taking those basic allyship actions and you feel better and more empowered to say that you are an ally. And when it comes to bringing this to your company, I'll go over this and then we'll go into the program. We created it as a gap between that intent and action, and we introduced more than 50 research-backed actions that you can take as an ally that don't feel so difficult to start practicing immediately. We need to start somewhere, and this program really empowers you and equips you to do that as soon as you start it. This is also our first program at Lean In that's actually not just focused on women, but it's centered around the experiences of the LGBTQ plus community, people with disabilities, women, intersectional identities. It took us 2 years to create this program. And our CEO always likes to laugh at the amount of money per word, that if we were not a nonprofit, we would be in some trouble for how long and how much effort and intentionality we put into this program. And we try our best to represent these experiences, knowing that it's not going to be holistic in every single lived experience. But again, it equips you to start your allyship journey to continue on. Why it's effective is it's specific and interactive. It's not going to feel like you're leaving with still this concept in the clouds. You're going to understand what to do with that and specifically actions that we can show up regardless of level at our employer. It's also designed to engage all employees. So regardless of identity, role, seniority, you can discover ways to practice meaningful allyship, which again, when it comes to trainings, that's what we want to end with, is what is the action we can take to show up through whatever we're learning about. It's also free and flexible. So if you decide that you want to bring this to your company, but you're not enjoying my American accent, for example, you can go on our website, find all the resources to bring this to your organization and feel fully equipped and supported to do that. And so we do that because, again, we don't want barriers to get in the way. And then we want to make sure that it can fit in your culture, because organizations' cultures are different from organization to organization. And then finally, it is rooted in intersectional research. And so we had worked with so many incredible experts in this space and the lived experiences that they represent to bring that to this program so that we could represent, when we talk about these communities, we're doing it in a very intentional way. Like I said, we do empower you to run allyship at work. You know your company best. And so we do focus on making sure that you can bring this, and you can also customize it and tweak it to fit the right culture that you have. We host moderator trainings every month so that if you do want to host this session, you can. We also have a very robust moderator guide. And so if you want to have all the structure you need, you have it. We've created that to make sure that you can bring this to your organization. And we've even taken it a step further with creating a marketing toolkit. How might we email and communicate with our organization why we're doing this? How can we create posters, whether virtually or if you're actually seeing them in person, talking about it? And then we have something about this participant workbook that's only private to that participant to write down and explore how they felt going through the program to revisit it. So I know that at this point, some of you might need a drop, and understandably, I wanted to give you an understanding of what the program was and how to bring it. Again, you have my email, you have the website there. And if you can stay on, I'm going to go over a little bit of this. I'll do it really quickly so you can have an idea of what the workshop looks like, but really excited to share with you because this does feel like a concept that so many people want to better understand and feel equipped and empowered to show up as. So really quickly, we talk about that allyship definition through this video, and we make it very basic to say allyship is an active and consistent effort to use your privilege and power to support and advocate for people with less privilege. We watch the video, and then we go into small groups and talk about these different questions. So did your definition of allyship change after watching this video? Have you seen any examples of impactful allyship in your workplace or life? To have these meaningful conversations and to share with one another what we've already learned, even just starting the workshop when we even think about allyship. We then do the same approach when it comes to privilege. Very basic understanding of privilege is the unearned advantage we get from being a part of a dominant group whose needs have traditionally been prioritized. And so we understand really, what does it mean to hold it? Why do we hold it? And what can we do once we're aware of that privilege that we hold? And we take it a step further with this exercise to actually then dive into what's the exploration of privilege that we might hold that we haven't even thought of. And so you go through this list understanding, where might I hold privilege that I hadn't thought of before? It's 2 pages long. You'll see it covers a lot of things as far as gender identity, having your religion actually be recognized by your employer, talking about socioeconomic backgrounds, family dynamics, to understand that maybe we understood that we weren't privileged in other areas, but we actually do hold privilege in others. And so we want to set the stage right that we all hold privilege in one form or fashion. Now that we understand that, let's have a conversation that's more on the same page. And then again, we had that next conversation, breakout rooms. What stood out to you about your own privilege? And then is there an area where you hold privilege that you took for granted? And it really helps understand and bring to the forefront how we might show up and how we flow through this world with the privilege that we hold. We then go into workplace inequities, learn how privilege is tied to inequities in the workplace by exploring data and stories. And so what that might look like is inequity in hiring. And so you'll read a story, you'll hear a transcript. This is one that you can actually listen to about where it shows up to understand tangibly why this is still important and why it's still relevant. And then we go into the next module, which is positional power. So uncovering the unique positional power we hold. You have your individual journal, just like I referenced, the workbook to go to and understand where do you hold it, write it down, think about it, have those processes go on, and then discuss in small groups. The outcome of this module is to identify what power each individual holds in the workplace, and how this power unlocks opportunities to practice allyship. We want you to leave feeling that you can do something, not that you've become aware of something and now not know what to do with that. And so after that module, we then go into specific allyship actions, which is really exciting. And so you watch a short video to learn about the framework of allyship actions, and then you explore specific strategies and actions. And you can see what we've done is we've broken it down to individual actions, interpersonal, and structural. So I'm going to give you an idea of all of those as I wrap up here. And the outcome is to learn different strategies and specific actions employees can leverage to practice allyship in their everyday workplace. So to give you an example of an individual action, you can share your pronouns and don't assume others' gender. And what we do is we talk about then why that's important. I've had this conversation as soon as I joined the foundation at Lean In. My dad was trying to understand why are pronouns so important. And that was a really important conversation to not just say, oh, okay, then I'll do that, but then to be educated, understanding why is that an action that I should practice. So that's an individual action, to give you an example. An interpersonal action is actually asking for input. So when you're creating a product, how can you make it more inclusive? How can you prioritize that? And what are the specific actions you might do in that? At the foundation, we talk about that a lot. Depending on what product we're creating or work stream we're working on, we get different perspectives to make sure that it is inclusive and that it is hitting different voices as well. And then finally, what a structural action might look like. And so these are really your leaders and executives of the firm that can, or of the organizations that can make some structural changes, including equity in your definition of success. It is a specific action you can take. And we talk about that in here, as well as then going a little bit deeper for it. And so those are just some specific actions that I wanted to call out and what you can expect to take from this workshop, no matter, again, what level you're at. There are different ways in practicing those actions. And then we do have that small group discussion. What would it look like for you to practice that action in your role at your organizations? What challenges might you face? And then how might you individually or with others in your group start to work through those? And so having this area where you can talk to others about helps uncover then different ideas and next steps to take. And that was the quickest I have ever gone through allyship at work. So I really hope that was helpful and help understanding. If it was not, I am happy to talk to any of you about this program. My email is at madelyn@sgff.org. We're really proud and really excited about this program. And I would be happy to share with anyone who's interested to learn more how companies are implementing it, what changes they're seeing, and what does that sustained allyship look like in their organization. So Vanessa, sorry I went over. Thank you.
You're fine.
Thank you so much for having me.
There's so much good stuff on this meeting. You know, it's almost impossible for us to keep to time, but we do our best. But Madelyn, thank you so much. If you can pop your email in the chat, that would be fab. And remember, you guys, you can download some of the links on the chat as well. We've put some links to reports in, there's some direction to interviews and book purchases and things like that. So Madelyn will do that. But Madelyn, an absolutely fabulous resource for people to use as we continue to focus on allyship in general. And that's not just kind of male allyship, that's allyship across the piece. And so thank you for the great work that you guys do at Lean In. It's absolutely amazing.